I just want to do this until I'm 90. My needs, my voice, my opinion, my physical integrity, my safety is worth fighting for against all odds. And I kicked him in the chest and he flew across the room. So why do I fight?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so my name is Tina, I'm 40 years old and I work as an executive coach and I specialize in personal development and working with unconscious dynamics. I have no sport or training background before I started Krav Maga. I literally haven't done any sports for, I'd say, 25 years. I never liked the term martial arts. So when thinking about, okay, what kind of sport, self-defense element system am I looking for, I really didn't want to do anything that was calling violence, physical violence, a form of art, because there's nothing beautiful about it, there's nothing magical about it, right? And I think I liked Krav Maga because it's honest about what it is and what it isn't. It's a self-defense, close combat system. That's what it is. And it works under the assumption that your opponent is faster, bigger, and probably also more prepared than you. And I think that's quite realistic, so that's why I chose it. I looked into other clubs, group trainings and such, but there was just too much testosterone and ego usually present, so I very quickly discarded them. I mean, in the end, I was searching for a personal trainer because I believe that learning how to defend yourself is a quite personal experience. And so I wanted to have someone who really sees me and who adapts to my needs and not to their needs, right? So where it's about making me feel empowered, feel strong, look good in the end, and not fulfill a group system or some sort of approach or even have the trainer look good. And so I was basically Googling and trying out looking into different profiles, and I saw Felix and it looked interesting. And so we had a first conversation and then I did the first class and I was 100% convinced. Because in the end, I think I've never met a man who is so free of ego and so empowering for towards someone like me, and who really not only literally makes me feel more powerful, but also in the way how he trains. That's such a valuable, enriching experience, so I would never go back, I would say, and I would always do it again. I would say my main concern was that I was not physically strong enough, because as I said, I haven't had any really real sport for more than 20 years. So that was my main concern. But because it's a personal training and Felix is so good at really adapting the level of the training to my strength and skills, it actually was never a problem. I mean, I go out of here feeling exhausted, but in a way that makes me feel proud and not broken. It's not a boot camp, and that's what it feels like. Sometimes I feel I've started training with Felix 2 weeks ago, but that is not true. In honesty, it's about 2 years, I think. Fighting with my partner, how does this feel like? Well, my partner Sandra and we are really close, so we know each other really, really well. And also before Krav Maga, I would trust her with my life. So there is nothing. For us, there is no issue with psychological safety, and there is also not much of a power dynamic in our relationship anyway. So it actually, for me, is a beautiful experience because we meet here at the mat or on the mat in a way that we usually don't, obviously. But it also means that I can really let myself go and experience myself and do something without the entire psychological concerns behind it. What would she think about me? How does she judge me? And so on. So I can actually be quite free in fighting with her, always knowing that we are safe because Felix will protect us, right? So we'll make sure that we are not seriously injuring each other. We are talking about it a lot, actually. We're talking about how would we approach this situation or that situation. But it also, you can see that we are more, when coming into a maybe difficult situation or in a situation that might be a bit, I don't know, in the darkness, being alone out on the street, and so two women, right? Then we get closer. So we rely more onto each other, we basically look out for each other a little bit more. So there is more sense of, we do this together now. So we protect ourselves together. I'm looking forward usually to the scenarios. I mean, I love the techniques and I love really also engaging my mind and understanding the situation. I love principles in general, something that is not just this specific technique, but something you can apply in other elements in general. But what I really love and look forward to are the scenarios, as in scenarios, for example, when you're standing at an ATM and someone comes from behind and tries to steal your money, what do you do? But also more abstract scenarios in terms of I stand in the middle of the room and I have my eyes closed and then I get an attack from somewhere, where it's about what happens when you're not prepared, when you're surprised, because, I mean, that's what life is about, right? That usually people don't prepare you for any sort of offense. And so this is what I really like, because it really trains you on a more holistic level and not just on a physical level. I'm most surprised when my subconscious takes over. So for example, when we do a sparring and we're fighting against each other and I am completely exhausted and I have nothing else to give. And then suddenly there's a voice kicking in that says, no, we're not giving up now. No, I'm just not gonna stay down now. And then there's suddenly more energy. Or when out of nowhere my body suddenly knows how to apply a technique and just does it without me thinking about it or thinking, oh, this is how you now choke him, or this is how now you have to basically put your hand here and so on. So I think the most surprising part is that my body learns something even without my mind being utterly present in that moment. And it's a beautiful experience. I value most about training with Felix when it comes to scenarios that he really understands how to explain, as I said, the different levels, how to explain the physical technicalities on, okay, what is, for example, a lever that you need to use in order to control someone's arm and so on, but also where do you apply this? What's the hard version and the soft version of the situation? What is the principle behind it? How to do this in a way that is safe for you and maybe also safe for the one that you want to protect, that you have with yourself. Using everyday tools, a chair, for example, that is there. And all of this just gives a great package where I feel like I really learned something that goes, as I said, way beyond a sporting exercise. And at the same time, he just makes it incredible amount of fun. So it's just, we laugh a lot, it's very funny, and it's never serious and bad things and so on, although the topic is fairly heavy, right? But it's never something that I'm afraid of or that I feel uncomfortable with, quite the opposite. The fun moments that I can think of are usually at the end, in terms of when, after each session, we record the techniques that we learned in this session, right? And after 1.5 hours of training, Sandra and I are usually absolutely exhausted, and also our minds are a little bit gone by then. So the recordings are, let's say, not our proudest moments. And then looking at them again in the end or a day later is hilarious, because you can literally see how many brain cells we've lost in that session. So if you want to do a comedy show about Krav Maga, just use these videos and put them on Instagram. I think you will be a burner. We do these video recordings because it's really important for us, at least, to just recap between the sessions, of course, but then although it's not that the techniques are so super complicated, but sometimes it's like the devil is in the detail so wait, does the arm go up or down, or what is it? And then it really helps just to repeat it once or twice, just look at it again and then play it through in your mind in order to see progress. If we don't do it, then we really start more or less from scratch every time, which we've done multiple times. But that's just how it is. You learn as fast as you can. My proudest moment, I would say, was fairly at the beginning of our training, where we were standing at opposite sides of the room. So Felix on one side and I was standing on the other side. And Felix was wearing some sort of body protection and then charging towards me with full speed. And I mean, if a grown man with basically fighting gear comes charging at you, that's very intimidating. And I was supposed to stop him with a kick to his chest, right? And in the beginning, I was scared as, you know, and I think I can't do this, I will fall back, I will hit my head, I will break my foot, whatever. And then basically he came charging and I managed to do it, and I kicked him in the chest and he flew across the room, like 2-3 meters, and maybe I'm exaggerating here a bit, but nevertheless, I felt like I was kicking him like Superwoman one time across the room. And there was no fancy technique involved, right? It was just me standing up against a very, very strong force, but I still managed to do it. And I was so proud afterwards because I felt so self-sufficient in that moment. The way how Krav Maga influences my life, I would say, comes down to the question, am I worth fighting for? Right? Because in the end, I would say as many women have by default a voice in my head that says, don't interact, don't go there, it's not worth it. You know, don't escalate, it's not worth it. And this is not only true for a really violent situation, it's also true in business situations and social interactions in so many ways. I mean, I've always been trained to just be still, turn away, de-escalate and so on. And in many cases, de-escalation is the right approach. But when you do this as a default, it basically says, I will never be able to win the conflict anyway. And through Krav Maga, I think I've learned that sometimes fighting is more important than winning, because when you fight for yourself. It means I am worth fighting for. And that's what I really learned, and that's what shows up in my life more and more often. That it's not so much do I have a chance, am I gonna win? That's not the point. I mean, my needs, my voice, my opinion, my physical integrity, my safety is worth fighting for against all odds. And that's what I've learned here. So where does Krav Maga maybe also venture into my work? I can maybe talk a little bit about this, or maybe Felix coming into my work as well. Sometimes I create immersive experiences for people who really want to venture a little bit more deeply into their blind spots, who want to do personal development work that is maybe a bit more challenging. So I create these bespoke experiences for them. And we usually pick a topic either for an individual or for a group, and for example, one setting is coming up for a group in the near future, where we take topics that it's very hard to experience in your day-to-day life. So for example, the topic that we're gonna address in this upcoming workshop or experience is around mortality and feeling and experiencing a situation where all the layers of protection that we usually have around us are taken away from you and you can do nothing against it. And the origin of this was in a session with Felix, because we had one session where he asked me to defend Sandra from him. So he was trying to get to Sandra, my partner, and I was supposed to defend her. And I had no chance. I could work as much as I wanted, but he would get through. And you could argue, but what's the training effect? Well, there is an effect in this, because the emotion that was triggered there was so strong and it made me freeze. And working through this freeze and actually finding a way of dealing with such a difficult situation where the thing that you value most in your life is threatened was super important for me. And so I wanted to bring this experience also to the group that I will be working with and integrate it there. And so we will do something, I wouldn't call it similar, but something along those lines, where Felix comes in and actually becomes the gatekeeper towards something that they value a lot, and they have to fight against him to get to it. And I hope he will give them quite a hard time of doing it. Not because he's mean, quite the opposite, but actually for them to learn what it means that the social mask that we've built sometimes just won't work. And then you stand there and you just feel helpless. And you need to learn how to deal with a situation like this. And that's what we're gonna then afterwards work with them, or what I'm gonna work with them then, how to integrate and adapt to a situation like this from a psychological standpoint. Yeah, when I presented the idea to him, Felix was thrilled actually. It's not the most easy topic, but I think, I mean, I can't speak for him, but it sounded like he was very excited, because I think he really likes the idea that Krav Maga becomes more than just a physical exercise and just more of a very cornered experience that only applies to a certain amount of people in certain situations. And with doing this together, I think it's a great symbiosis between personal psychological development but also physical development, and it shows how beautiful these two link together, because your mind will never really learn something that your body hasn't learned already, and the other way around, right? And that is becomes very palpable or very, very easy to understand in a situation, a workshop or experience like this. I think in the beginning I was not 100% clear on why I did it. It was more of an urge. It was more of an idea, I really want to do this and I want to do it now, and I want to do specifically Krav Maga. Why, as in the motivation behind it, I probably would have told you some sort of story about why when I started. I'm not sure though that this motivation was so clear to me in that moment. I think it was the right moment to do it. And now over time, my motivation is not changing, it just becomes clearer to me how this integrates in my life. I just want to do this until I'm 90. In the end, for me, this is more about consistency rather than meeting a specific goal. I mean, I hope that I will never have to apply this in my life. I sincerely never want to be in a situation where I think, God bless, I did Krav Maga with Felix, right? I never want to be in that situation. So for me, it's more a continuous interaction with myself, a continuous experience where I challenge myself, and I see no end to this. So if someone would stand in front of me and thinking about, oh, should I do this, should I not do this, should I start Krav Maga and also start working with Felix, I would probably say, just go for it and make it your own. So specifically working with Felix, you have the privilege of making this your experience. You don't just follow a class, you don't just go through the motions. This is about you and your strength and your empowerment. You use this opportunity because there are few systems where you can do this so specifically and so with so much impact. I would argue, without knowing all of them, but I would argue, than with Krav Maga and in a personal training setup with Felix. So why do I fight? Well, because I'm worth it.
Stop. Thank you.
That's it? Okay, thank you then.